I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to fall for my older brother's best friend. Not because it was taboo or anything dramatic like that. Honestly, I hadn't thought about it much at all. But then, there was that night. The one night that changed everything. And if I'm being honest, I still don't know how I ended up there, in that exact moment with him. So let me set the scene. My brother Jake had been best friends with Matt since forever. Like, middle school forever. They were inseparable, the kind of duo that made you think they were actually brothers. Matt was 6 years older than me, tall, with this easy confidence that made people listen when he spoke. He had this kind of smile that was casual but could light up a room, and honestly, I always thought he was pretty damn good looking. But he was always Jake's guy, you know? I was just the kid tagging along at family barbecues, feeling invisible in their world. It was a Friday night, and Jake was out of town for some work thing. When he told me he was going away, my parents asked if I wanted to hang out at our place with Matt, who was crashing there for the weekend. I wasn't about to say no to that. I mean, Matt was cool, and having someone older around seemed better than sitting alone scrolling on my phone. So there we were, in the living room, the TV blaring some old game show rerun that neither of us was really watching. Matt was sprawled on the couch, feet up, casually killing a bag of chips, while I was sitting cross-legged on the floor, half listening and half trying not to freak out about how normal this all felt. There was nothing weird or tense, just two guys hanging out, but I could feel this strange mix of nerves and something else building up inside me. We started talking, like really talking, not just about the usual small stuff. Matt asked me about school, friends, what I wanted to do with my life. And I told him, honestly, maybe a little too honestly, about how I felt invisible sometimes, like I was living in Jake's shadow. And he didn't brush it off or make some joke. He just listened, really listened, which was weirdly comforting. Somewhere between that and an impromptu game of Mario Kart that I surprisingly almost won, the vibe shifted. It wasn't just Matt being Jake's best friend anymore. It was Matt being someone I wanted to know for me. Not for Jake, not for anyone else, just for me. And then, out of nowhere, we ended up sitting closer on the couch. The room was dim, just the glow from the TV and a few scattered lamps. I decided to say something stupid like, "You ever think about how weird it is that you and Jake are like brothers, but you don't look anything alike?" And Matt laughed. But his eyes didn't look away from mine. Before I knew it, the space between us shrank even more. And then, just for a second, I caught that look. The one where everything feels like it's about to change, but you're not sure if it's a good or bad thing. Matt's hand brushed against mine, and I swear my heart skipped a beat. I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified. This was uncharted territory, and I had no idea where it was going. But I also knew I didn't want it to stop. That night, Matt wasn't just my brother's best friend anymore. For a few hours, he was mine. And that's when everything got complicated. His hand resting lightly against mine felt electric. I wasn't sure if it was his touch, or the fact that everything about the night was suddenly different, like the whole world had flipped on its axis without me noticing. I swallowed hard, trying to figure out if I should pull away or lean in, and honestly, neither choice seemed safe or simple. Matt broke the silence, his voice low but steady. "You're really different from what I expected." I blinked, caught off guard. "Yeah? How so?" He shrugged but didn't take his hand back. "Not in a bad way. Just, you're not just Jake's little brother. You've got your own thing going on." I guess I never really saw that before. I wanted to say something clever or profound, but all I managed was a quiet thanks. Because, yeah, it felt nice to be seen like that. Not the kid tagging along, not the guy living in someone else's shadow. Just me. The TV droned on with some ridiculous game show contestant failing miserably at a challenge, but I barely noticed. My attention was completely on Matt. The way his eyes held mine, like he was searching for something or maybe hoping to find it. Then out of nowhere, he squeezed my hand gently. "I've been wanting to tell you something for a while." My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. "What?" He hesitated. The smile he gave me was small but genuine. I think I've had a crush on you for a while." I laughed nervously, trying to play it off like a joke, but the truth was I'd thought about him more times than I cared to admit. And knowing he felt the same way, it felt surreal. "Seriously?" I asked, half hoping he was messing with me. "Yeah, it's been weird, having these feelings for my best friend's little brother. But I can't lie about it anymore." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to freeze time right there on the couch, just holding his hand forever. Another part was terrified. What if this messed everything up? What if Jake found out? But the way Matt looked at me with no judgment or hesitation made those fears seem smaller. Like maybe it was okay to want this, even if it was unexpected. I reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind his ear, my fingers brushing his cheek. "I think I've wanted this too." He smiled wider, and in that moment, the room felt warmer, softer. The distance that had been between us all those years started to close. We didn't rush anything after that. We just sat there, hands entwined, sharing stories and laughs. It felt like we were discovering a new language, one only we understood. Matt told me about college, how he'd struggled with his own feelings growing up, and how Jake was the only person who'd ever truly known him. I shared my own insecurities, the pressure of living up to everyone's expectations. Every word brought us closer, peeling back layers I didn't even realize I was hiding. At some point, we moved to the kitchen and grabbed a couple of beers from the fridge. The clinking of bottles and the hum of the fridge made the silence between us comfortable, not awkward. "You know," Matt said, taking a sip, "I've wanted to do this for so long, but I was scared it would ruin everything with Jake." I nodded, understanding completely. "Me too, but maybe it's worth the risk." He looked at me with that same open expression, maybe. Later, we found ourselves back on the couch, but this time, we were closer than ever. We talked about nothing and everything. Music, movies, dreams, all with that new, unspoken connection between us. When the clock hit 2 a.m., the quiet hum of the house felt almost like a safety net. I could feel Matt's steady breath on my neck, his arm wrapped loosely around my shoulders. "Do you want to stay here tonight?" he asked softly. I hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding. "Yeah, I'd like that." It wasn't just about being alone or safe. It was about finally feeling like I belonged somewhere. That night, Matt wasn't just my brother's best friend. He was the person I trusted with my secrets, my hopes, and, yeah, maybe my heart too. As I lay there, the weight of everything that had happened settling in, I knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. And honestly, I was ready for that. Morning came in slow waves, the sunlight sneaking through the curtains and casting soft shadows across the room. I woke up with this strange, almost surreal sensation of someone's arm draped across my side. For a moment, I froze, half expecting it to be a dream. But then, I felt the warmth, the steady rhythm of Matt's breathing, and I realized this was really happening. I didn't want to move too much and risk waking him, so I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. My mind was spinning. What did this mean? What did so mean? Honestly, it was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Eventually, Matt shifted, his eyes fluttering open. He gave me a sleepy smile, the kind that made my chest tighten. "Morning," he whispered. "Morning," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady even though I felt like I could burst. We stayed like that for a few minutes, just soaking in the quiet comfort of each other's presence. It was weird how natural it felt, even though nothing about this was what I had expected just 24 hours before. "So," Matt said, breaking the silence, "how do you think Jake's gonna react when he finds out?" I groaned softly, running a hand through my hair. "I don't know. Honestly, I'm scared. Like, what if he hates it? Or worse, what if it ruins your friendship?" Matt was quiet for a beat, then shrugged. "He's pretty open-minded, but yeah, this is a lot to process. We've been friends forever. I guess we'll have to be honest with him." The idea of being honest felt daunting, but I also knew hiding this wasn't an option. I didn't want to live in a constant state of fear or secrecy. After breakfast, we decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. The air was crisp, the kind of cool that still carried hints of summer but promised fall was coming. Walking beside Matt felt right. like we were two people finally stepping into a story that had been waiting a long time to be told. We ended up at the park, sitting on a bench overlooking the small pond. Ducks floated lazily on the water while a few kids chased each other nearby. Matt glanced at me, a slight nervousness in his eyes. "Hey, I know this is a lot, but I want you to know that whatever happens, I'm here. Not just for tonight or this weekend, but, for real." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. I want that too. We spent the afternoon talking about everything: family, school, future plans. It felt like every word brought us closer, building something new and fragile, but promising. That evening, I finally decided to text Jake. My hands were shaking as I typed out a message. "Hey man, can we talk when you get back? It's kinda important." His reply was quick. "Sure. Everything okay?" I wasn't sure how to answer that. Maybe not, maybe everything was about to get complicated. But I knew I needed to be honest. A few days later, Jake returned, and the moment we were all together, Matt and I exchanged a look. The kind of look that said, "We have to do this." Jake was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone when Matt spoke up. "Hey, Jake, we need to talk." Jake looked up, confused but attentive. "Okay, what's up?" Matt took a deep breath. "This is kinda awkward, but I want to be honest. Well, I have feelings for you's little brother." Jake blinked, clearly surprised. "Wait, what?" I jumped in. "It's true. Matt and we started something. And we wanted you to know." There was a long silence. I could feel my heart pounding like a drum. I braced myself for some kind of anger or disappointment. But then Jake laughed, a little awkward, but genuine. "Well, I guess I can't be mad at that. If anyone's going to mess with my little bro, it might as well be my best friend." Relief crashed over me like a wave. Jake wasn't upset. He wasn't angry. Maybe this was going to be okay after all. Matt grinned, like a weight had lifted off his shoulders. "Thanks, man. That means a lot." Over the next few weeks, things settled into a new normal. Matt and I found a rhythm. Quiet moments, stolen glances, and the kind of conversations that made me feel like I was waking up to something real. There were still moments of uncertainty, sure. I worried about what other people might think, or how this would change family gatherings. But with Matt by my side and Jake's unexpected support, I started to believe that maybe love wasn't as complicated as I'd thought. That night, lying next to Matt, I thought about how a best friend had become so much more than that. And I smiled, because sometimes the best stories are the ones you never saw coming. Even though Jake had taken the news surprisingly well, the next few days felt like walking on a tightrope. I kept second-guessing every text, every look Matt and I exchanged in public, wondering if someone was going to snap the whole thing apart. I mean, it was one thing between us, but the way everyone knew Jake and Matt as this inseparable duo, it felt like our little secret was about to become a headline or some family gossip. One afternoon, Matt and I were chilling on the porch, just soaking up the rare quiet. The late summer sun was warm but not oppressive, and the neighborhood kids were running around, their laughter echoing somewhere down the street. It was the kind of day that made you feel like the world was slowing down, giving you a moment to breathe. I glanced over at Matt, who was lazily scrolling through his phone. "You ever think about how weird this all is? Like, me dating your best friend? I still feel like I'm walking through someone else's story." He looked up, his grin softening. "Yeah, it's not the usual setup, that's for sure. But maybe that's what makes it special. We're making our own story here, not just replaying the same old stuff." I nodded, liking the idea of that. Making our own story. I like that. Matt shifted closer, his shoulder brushing mine. I was nervous about telling Jake, but once I did, it felt like a huge weight lifted. He's my best friend for a reason. "Yeah," I said quietly. I was scared he'd be pissed or weirded out. Trust me, I was too. But he's always had your back. Maybe this is just another way of showing it. The honesty in his voice was grounding, and I realized that no matter how scary this new chapter was, having Matt by my side made it feel like I wasn't alone in it. That night, After dinner, Matt and I decided to take a walk downtown. The streets were lively for a Saturday, with music drifting from the bars and people bustling out of shops. We wandered aimlessly, talking about nothing and everything, the kind of easy conversation that felt like a balm after all the tension. At one point, Matt stopped in front of a little record store with a dusty window display. "We should come here sometime," he said. "I haven't been in years." I smiled. "Deal. Let's make it a date." He laughed, and for a moment, the normalcy of it hit me. Like, maybe we weren't just some secret between two people, but something real and possible. A few days later, Jake invited us both out for a casual hang at his place. I was nervous about how things would feel. With Matt and me officially together now, would it be weird? But Jake was himself. Easygoing, cracking jokes, making sure we both felt comfortable. At one point, he clapped Matt on the back. "Glad you two are figuring it out." I gotta say, I'd never pictured this, but it makes sense. Matt grinned. "Yeah, life's full of surprises." I caught Jake's eye across the room, and there was this small, almost mischievous smile on his face, like he was in on some secret that made everything better. Later that night, Matt and I were back at our place, sitting on the floor with takeout boxes scattered around us. The TV was on, but neither of us was really watching. He looked at me, his expression serious for once. "Are you okay?" "I know this is a lot." I nodded, though inside I was still sorting out a mess of feelings. "I think so. It's just new. And sometimes, I wonder if I'm ready for all of it." He reached out and took my hand. "We don't have to have it all figured out right now. We'll take it one day at a time." That simple promise settled something inside me. Over the next week, we slipped into a routine that felt more like home than anything else. Morning coffee made together, lazy afternoons with music playing softly in the background, and late-night talks where we shared our wildest dreams and deepest fears. One night, as we lay tangled in the sheets, Matt traced slow circles on my arm. "You know, I never thought I'd find someone who gets me like this, who makes me want to be better." I smiled, heartful. I feel the same way. But with all the sweetness came moments of doubt. I caught myself wondering how long we could keep this under wraps. What would happen when other people in our town found out? How would my parents react? Would things ever just be simple? One afternoon, I decided to take a chance. I invited Matt over to meet my parents, hoping that making this real in their eyes would ease some of my worries. The meeting was awkward at first. My parents asked the usual questions, trying to mask their surprise. But by the end of the evening, there were smiles, genuine ones, and a few jokes. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As Matt and I cleaned up the kitchen, I felt a sense of relief. We were crossing new lines, and it was scary, but we were doing it together. Later, as we sat on the porch swing, Matt pulled me close. "No matter what comes next, I want you to know I'm here, for all of it." I leaned into him, the cool evening breeze wrapping around us. Me too. That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I realized something. This wasn't just a fling or a secret crush. This was real. And maybe, just maybe, it was exactly where I was meant to be. The weekend after my parents met Matt felt like the first real test of how things were going to work. It was Jake's birthday, and he was throwing a small party at his place. Nothing huge, just a handful of friends, some beer, and the usual mix of music that got everyone in a good mood. But for me, it was a little nerve-wracking. This was the first time Matt and I would be out together in front of all of Jake's friends. I wasn't sure if anyone else had caught on already, or if I was about to find out who was cool with it and who wasn't. We arrived early, Matt and me, arms linked like we were a couple, which, well, technically we were. It felt oddly comforting, like a small anchor in the sea of unknowns. Jake greeted us with a grin and pulled us both into a hug. "Glad you two made it. Don't cause too much trouble, okay?" Matt smirked. "No promises." As the night went on, the party filled up with people I recognized from school, a few of Jake's coworkers, and some random neighborhood faces. The music was loud, the laughter even louder, and the air thick with that mix of excitement and anticipation that only a good party can have. I'm not gonna lie, there were moments when I felt like I was under a microscope. People throwing curious glances our way, whispering just loud enough for me to catch. But Matt had this way of making me feel like we belonged, no matter what anyone else thought. He'd lean in, whisper some dumb joke or a compliment in my ear, and suddenly the world seemed a little less intimidating. At one point, I found myself talking to Sarah, Jake's longtime friend, who'd always been nice, but never much more than that. She surprised me by asking about Matt, how we met, what we liked to do together. I gave her the short version, careful not to overshare, but she smiled and said, "It's nice to see you happy. You deserve that. All of it." That hit me harder than I expected. Maybe I had been carrying this weight of invisibility for too long. Like I wasn't supposed to be the guy who got to have something real and messy and wonderful. Later, Jake pulled me aside, his expression serious for once. "I'm proud of you, you know. Not just for what's happening with Matt, but for standing up and owning it." I felt a lump in my throat. "Thanks, man. That means a lot." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Don't let anyone mess with your happiness. And if they do, remind them I'm still the biggest bully around." We both laughed, the tension easing. The night wrapped up with Matt and me standing outside the house, the cool air a sharp contrast to the warmth inside. He slid his hand into mine, his eyes shining with something I couldn't quite name. "Ready to go?" he asked. I nodded, feeling like I was finally stepping out of the shadows I'd been stuck in for so long. Walking back to my place, I realized how much this all had shifted. What had started as a strange, unexpected crush had grown into something deeper, something worth fighting for. Over the next few days, things continued to evolve. We settled into a rhythm that felt natural, even when life threw its usual curveballs. There were quiet mornings where we sipped coffee and talked about everything from favorite movies to dreams of future adventures. There were afternoons spent exploring the city or just hanging out at home, wrapped up in blankets and playlists. But with all the good came the moments of doubt. The times when I wondered if I was strong enough to handle the inevitable challenges, like the awkward questions from family members, or the sideways glances at work when Matt and I showed up together. The world wasn't always kind to people like us, and sometimes it felt like every step forward came with the risk of falling back. One afternoon, after a particularly rough day at my internship where a colleague made a snide comment about those kinds of relationships, I found myself spiraling into that old place of insecurity. I didn't want to ruin the progress we'd made, but the weight of judgment pressed down hard. Matt noticed immediately. He found me on the couch, head in my hands, the silence between us thick. "Hey," he said softly, sitting beside me. "Talk to me." I shook my head. "I'm fine. Just tired." He didn't buy it. "You don't have to pretend with me." I looked up, grateful for his patience. "It's just, sometimes it feels like, no matter what I do, I'm still that kid in the background, the one everyone overlooks." Matt reached out, brushing a hand through my hair. "You're not invisible to me. You're the only one I see." His words broke through the cloud, and for the first time in days, I let myself breathe. That night, as we lay tangled together, I realized that this, us, was worth every uncertainty, every risk. Because with Matt, I wasn't just Jake's little brother or some shadow. I was someone who mattered, someone who could love and be loved in return. And maybe that was the best feeling in the world. The days that followed that night felt like a reset button had been hit on everything. I was still grappling with the idea that someone like Matt could see me, not just as Jake's little brother, but as me, the me that was often quiet, second-guessing himself, and tucked in the background. But with Matt, there was this unspoken permission to just be, flaws and all. One afternoon, Matt showed up at my place with this goofy grin and a stack of old board games. "Thought we could have a proper game night," he said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't help but laugh. "You sure you're ready to get crushed?" He raised an eyebrow. "Bring it on." We sat up in the living room, the sunlight filtering through the curtains casting a warm glow across the floor. What started as competitive quickly turned into laughter-filled chaos. I might have let him win once or twice, but mostly I was just happy to be there, sharing space with him. Between rounds, he caught me watching him and smirked. "You're pretty easy to read, you know that?" "Hey, I'm just admiring the competition," I teased back. But then his expression softened and he leaned closer. "Seriously, you're something else." I felt that familiar flutter in my chest, the kind that made me nervous and excited all at once. "You're not so bad yourself." We fell into a comfortable silence, the kind that only happens when two people are perfectly content just being near each other. Later, as evening settled in, Matt pulled out an old record he'd found in his car, a vinyl from some classic rock band neither of us had listened to before. We laid back on the floor, the music filling the room, and I felt that strange mix of peace and anticipation again. Something about the way Matt looked at me then, the quiet intensity in his eyes, made me want to reach out and bridge the small space between us. So I did. Slowly, I took his hand, intertwining my fingers with his. He squeezed gently, and the warmth of that simple touch hit me harder than I expected. "Have you thought about what comes next?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Matt considered it for a moment. "Yeah, I want us to work, but I know it's not going to be easy," I nodded. "I'm scared sometimes of what people might say, of messing this up." He turned his head to rest against my shoulder. "Me too, but we're not alone. Jake's got our back, and we've got each other." That made me smile, that quiet assurance amidst all the uncertainty. But of course, life never stays simple for long. About a week later, I got a text from Jake that made my stomach drop. "We need to talk." Now, Matt was with me when it came through. I showed him the message, and he rubbed circles on my arm, trying to calm my nerves. Maybe it's nothing, but the look on Jake's face when he showed up at our door later that evening told a different story. He was serious, the easygoing vibe replaced by something I hadn't seen before. "Hey, can we sit down?" he asked. We moved to the kitchen, and Jake took a deep breath. "Look, I've been thinking a lot about this, you and Matt. It's cool, I get it. But some of the guys at work found out, and some people are talking." My heart sank. I'd been hoping that outside world wouldn't seep in so fast, but apparently it had. Jake looked between me and Matt. "I'm not mad, just worried. For both of you." Matt nodded. "We appreciate that, Jake. We're not going anywhere." Jake sighed. "I know. I just hate the idea of you guys having to face crap because of this." I reached across the table and grabbed Matt's hand. "We'll deal with it. Together." That night, as Matt and I sat on the porch, the weight of Jake's words hung between us. The idea that not everyone would be okay with us was daunting. "But we're stronger than the noise," Matt said quietly. "We've got Jake and we've got each other. That's enough." I leaned into him, grateful for that steady presence. "Yeah, it is." Days turned into weeks, and slowly the rumors faded. Some people were awkward, others curious, but no one caused real trouble. Jake was right there, making sure of it. And through it all, Matt and I kept building what we had. Date nights became a regular thing, sometimes fancy dinners, sometimes just grabbing burgers and walking the city streets. We explored our favorite coffee shops, found new music, and shared dreams about what the future might look like. One night, as we walked home under a sky full of stars, Matt stopped and looked at me. "You know," he said, voice low, "I never thought I'd find this, someone who makes me feel like I'm finally home." I smiled, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "Me neither." He pulled me close, and we stood there for a moment, two souls quietly promising to face whatever came next. In that instant, I knew this was just the beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where our story would go. Months had passed since that night under the stars, and somehow, everything had settled into a rhythm that felt steady and real. Matt and I had navigated the awkward conversations, the sideways glances, and the small moments of doubt. But more importantly, we'd built something that felt honest. Between us, with Jake, with my family, and maybe most surprisingly, with myself. One quiet Sunday afternoon, Matt and I found ourselves sitting in the park, the bench warmed by the sun. Jake was off doing some work thing, so it was just us, the low hum of city life around, and a gentle breeze carrying the scent of freshly cut grass. I could feel Matt's hand resting on my knee, steady and reassuring. I took a deep breath and looked over at him. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I really love this. Us. All of it. The messiness, The surprises, even the scary parts. He smiled, eyes soft and full of something I could only describe as home. Me too. I was scared at first, but you've changed everything. Made me believe in something I didn't even know I was looking for. For a moment, we just sat there, letting the words hang between us. It wasn't grand or overly dramatic. It was quiet, honest, and exactly what it needed to be. Then Matt shifted, reaching into his jacket pocket. My heart skipped. He pulled out a small, simple ring. Not flashy, but meaningful in the way that mattered. I don't want to rush anything, he said carefully, but I want us to keep building this. Together. You and my life, no matter what. I blinked, a rush of warmth flooding through me. The smile that spread across my face felt like the start of something new and wonderful. Yeah, I said, voice thick with everything I was feeling. I want that too. We sat there a little longer, hands entwined, the world moving around us but somehow feeling perfectly still. Later that evening, as we walked back home, Matt slipped his arm around my shoulders. I squeezed his hand and realized something important. Love isn't about perfection or avoiding fear. It's about choosing someone over and over, even when things get complicated. And standing there beside Matt, I knew I'd made that choice. Not because it was easy, but because it was real. Sometimes the best stories don't have fireworks or dramatic twists. They have quiet moments like this. Moments where two people decide to face the world together, hand in hand. And for me, that was more than enough.